I'm going to thank you very much, all of you, for being here. I know some faces, and it's a pleasure to be in the flesh, right? I'm going to read a mix of new poems and poems from my books. And my first poem is my latest one. It's always scary to read your brand new poem. And I have to thank two dear, beloved, and extraordinarily talented poets who are here, Chris Yost and George Acheson, who helped me with this poem because we're in a group together. So the poem is called Brief. And I think it has to do with something that we all experience. You know, when you're in a store or in an elevator and you just look ahead and then suddenly there's a face and you stop and you exchange a gaze and then it's over, right? Because life goes on. It's called Brief. It happens so often. Somewhere in a line, waiting room, or store, I see you. And it's something about the perfect curl of your lips, your cowlick, work-wrecked hands, or grief nearly collapsing your face that make me quietly nod and smile at you as I take you in, nameless companion in this crammed commute of a life. And whether you lower your eyes or smile back, I carry you along and remember you someday as I walk the dog or drive to the market, amazed to have you so close again, even for the smallest moment. I lived for many years in New York City, and although there are absolutely delightful people in New York City, now you know I'm going to say but, right? But there are also extremely pretentious and annoying human beings. That's all I need to say. Page 55. Dinner at the Who's Who. Amid swirling wine and flickers of silver, guests quote Dante, Brecht, Kant, and one another. I wait in the hall after not powdering my nose, trying to recompose that woman who will graciously take her place at the table and won't tell her hosts, I looked into your bedroom and closets. I smelled your obsession and brute. I sat on your bed, imagined you among those spotless sheets, looked long into the sad eyes of your son staring at your walls from a velvet frame. And I tried to smile at myself in your mirrors, wondering few smile that way too, those resilient little smiles one smiles at oneself before facing the day or another long night ahead with guests coming for dinner. So I wait in this hall because there are nights it's hard not to blurt out enough. Stop that Pulitzer, Wall Street, PC, Dante, sex, wars, have some Chianti. Let's stop. Let's talk about our thirsts and obsessions, our bedrooms and closets, the brutes in our mirrors, the eyes of our sons. There's time yet. Let's talk. I'm starving. And this is a letter to one of those who's who. All I want to say is I changed his initials because he, I said he, usually I say that person or that poet is still an extremely famous poet. This, for the famous poet who suggested I stop writing poems about Belgium. The only thing I want to tell you is that in Belgium, most of the roofs are slate. In Antwerp, most of the roofs are slate, but wild slate, not flat. So there's bumps, and so moss gathers there and then dies and comes back. This for the famous poet who suggested I stop writing poems about Belgium. In May, in Antwerp, long ago, my dear B, when the cloudbursts stopped their constant punishments, I believe they did this wholly for me. I had prayed for that, you see. I lived very close to God then, in my tiny attic, close to his throne, and across from Our Lady's Cathedral, its spires impaling the clouds, while gargoyles stuck out their tongues to the sinners below, slinking into the red light district behind the North Transept. But back to May. I leaned out the window then, as the first syrupy sun glazed the blue-gray housetops below, and witnessed their wild and green revival. Every year, each sickly slate tile scab that had shrunk into a shelt brown bruise from winter's castigations, every single little moss mess on every single roof resurrected into processions of bright jade zigzagging from dormers to ridges and gutters to eaves. Even the gargoyles giggled green. It's a simple joy to remember all this, dear B, from where I sit on the fallen trunk of a drought-deadened oak here in California, far from Antwerp, far from believing God can hear me, far from obeying saintly injunctions. But I'm glad to be here, overlooking the Pacific, far from you, as I imagine you must still be pontificating from your gilded poetry pulpit on the East Coast. And thank heavens be, that's far enough for me. It feels good to hear. You know, I've been reading a lot on Zoom. You too, Kim, right? And then you read your poem and you put everything you can in it because you want to please the readers, right? And then you finish. And then it's over, and then you go to the kitchen and I don't know, have an apple. Awful, awful. English flavor, 71. English flavors. I love to lick English the way I licked the hard, round licorice sticks that the Belgian nuns gave me for 6 good conduct points on Sundays after Mass. I love it when plethora, indolence, damask, or my new word, lasciviousness, stain my tongue, they thicken my saliva, sweet as those sticks, black and slick with every lick it took to make daggers out of them. Sticky spikes I brandished straight up to the ebony crucifix in the dorm, with the pride of a child more often punished than praised. Amok, awkward, or knuckles have jawbreaker flavors. There's honey in Hunter's Moon and hot pepper in Hunk. Mellifluous has aromas of almonds and milk. Those tastes of recompense still bittersweet today as I roll, bend, and shape English in my mouth, repeating its syllables like acts of contrition, then sticking out my new tongue, flavored and sharp to the ambiguities of meaning. Loving you in Flemish. Percherons, by the way, are dogs, horses that look like the Clydesdales. That's it. Let me love you in my tongue tonight. Heavy as Percheron hooves on fields lying fallow and humming with rain, their rich and dark loam steaming. I know words lazy as canals, gliding among willows and yews, green as memling's velvets or Bruegel's mossy farm roofs. Angry clappers on belfry bronze or moaning tugboat sirens, Flemish undulates like dunes or glistens with the spume of granite piers in Ostend. I know the lingo of the blue Antwerp alleys where women learn lust from the sea. They're too hungry for one sailor only. Let me love you with words uttered only there, words the many-tongued whores whisper. Kom mee, onze nacht in Antwerpen verdwalen, met de klank van de stroten, asiel amoureus, alleen geen geld om plezier te betalen. Ik ben een goed wraak, heel net en genereus. Onder de glans van de manestralen, wordt heel onze wereld een avondelijksbed. Kom mee naar bordelen, vol vrouwen en matrozen. Vergeet our naam en al de rest. That's a horse song, literally. It is, I mean, you can find it in the Antwerp. By the way, this is a poem about Belgium, dear B, if you happen to be looking. Come with me to spend the night in Antwerp street. Does their sound and music make your heart in love? And I know you don't have money to pay for pleasure tonight, but I'll be generous. I'll be a good woman for you. Under the gleam of the moon, all our world will become a marriage bed. Come with me to the brothels full of women and sailors. Forget your name and all the rest. This is a poem to please, dear B, because I'm going to talk about my parentage, but it has very little to do with Belgium. Dear B. Parentage. Mine is not from the morass of Flanders marshes, although their hues ink my eyes. Not from a mother, her head spun always away, nor from convent walls or kisses that I hid, head bowed inside my childhood palms to quiet longing, such longing. But from a Flemish farmer once, who held my face in both hands to kiss my brow for no more than a second, that brief, but with such will and tenderness that I can now lift my head far back to read the clouds. I'm from the ocean's melancholy, dragging its anchors back and forth, never quiet, never still, the waves so restless they cannot mirror the moon. From those tides, those ebbings, and from the two wedding bands on my finger, from them too, and from every book I ever held, my shelved provenance, language womb, and sail. For those of you who write poetry and who swear and sweat and hate forms, but do it anyway because you want to write a sonnet, etc., this is a Fantom. And it's about Arroyo Burro Beach in Santa Barbara. However, I called it Godwit Beach because I love those little godwits that run. Godwit Beach. How appeased they are today, those waves, limpid, crowning, shoulder to shoulder, old lovers come to linger on these sands, companions of furious storms and Pacific languor. Limpid, crowning, shoulder to shoulder, like us, love. They remind me of us, those tides, companions of furious storms and Pacific languor. We walked a while along these limestone cliffs. Like us, love. They remind me of us, those tides. Remember, it was late in the afternoon. We walked a while along these limestone cliffs under the silver ghosts of eucalyptus trees. Remember, it was late in the afternoon. We said, yes, yes, this is where we belong, isn't it? Under the silver ghosts of eucalyptus trees as the day blushes so frankly there, way in the west. We said, yes, yes, this is where we belong, isn't it? Old lovers come to linger on these sands as the day blushes so frankly there, way in the west. How appeased they are today, those waves. And then this is the two poem, so that you can count on both fingers, two more poems. I'm reading this for my friend, the sculptor and poet, Susie Cronin. It's called Lately. Lately, when a branch pulls at my sleeve like a child's tug, or the fog, reticent and thick, lifts, and strands of it still hang like spun sugar between branches and twigs, or when a phoebe trills from the hackberry, I believe such luck is meant only for me. Does this happen to you? Do you believe at times that a moment chooses you to remember it entirely and tell about it so that it may live again? And the last poem I'm going to read is hidden in a place where I hide it every morning. Oh. And it's when my husband died completely suddenly, after being manic and cleaning and washing the curtains 17 times and etc. A publisher, Tiger Bark Press, asked me to go into Kurt's computer and take his, my husband's name was, he was a poet called Kurt Brown, and asked me to go in his computer, which is, you don't do that. You don't go into people's computers. You just don't do that. But then the fact that I could publish a selected and new poems, I had to go into his computer. And he had categories: done, almost done, bad, drafts. Yeah. And I found this in almost done. And he had never shown it to me. The kiss. That kiss I failed to give you. How can you forgive me? The kiss I would have spent on you is still there within me. It will probably die there, but it will be the last of me to die. What a great opening program you have given us. Just extraordinary.